2006, 2007, it was a small break in between my contract time. I, spent some time watching Bloomberg. And what I noticed, they were spending more time talking about the gaming environment and the revenues. And so, with all due respect to those guys, they have a different format today where they use younger guys that are more plugged in.
From protecting national security to diving into the world of comic books, Dion Wilson's journey is nothing short of extraordinary. So how did a former U.S. Department of Defense contractor find himself amidst the vibrant, ever-evolving world of comic conventions and independent media? Well, stay tuned to discover what inspired Dion to make this unique leap and how he's now revolutionizing the creative industry with blockchain technology.
Thank you, Mike, for having me. Thank you.
Pleasure to have you. So, Dion, you've had an amazing journey from starting a security protection company to diving back into your love for comic books with Titanium Comics. Could you share what inspired you to return to the comic book industry after you worked with the U.S. Department of Defense?
Absolutely. So really, it was during that time. It was a pastime, of course. I'd have to say it was the market. The market is what brought me back. I saw something really unique, really dynamic, and that was the amount of people, audience that was getting involved in the convention space. And hearing about San Diego Comic Con, the numbers were just jumping each year, people coming from all over the world. And reading comics growing up, it was that fringe group that, were nerds, that we were. And this wasn't mainstream, comics were popular. The characters were, of course, more commercially known than even their stories, but you had to be in the comics. And so about 2006, 2007, it was a small break in between my contract time. I, spent some time watching Bloomberg, and what I noticed, they were spending more time talking about the gaming environment and the revenues. And so, with all due respect to those guys, they have a different format today where they use younger guys that are more plugged in. But I said, look, there's got to be somebody else that's a little bit closer to the well than these guys. They're, when it comes to the financials, great. But when it comes to, what's really happening, what's really popular. So that led me to looking at a lot of different news and a lot of different shows. And one of the shows that was extremely popular at the time was Attack of the Show with host Kevin Pereira and and Olivia Munn. And that kind of took me also on this journey that showed me comics and pop culture was becoming a phenomenon in the United States, something it hadn't been. And you hear people talk about being geeks and nerds. I'm like, wait a minute, being geeks and nerds, you get beat up for this stuff back in my day. You had to hide and read a comic if you read it outside or weren't at the comic shops. So that really caught my attention. And I said, there's something here and I want to explore it. And ultimately that brought me to Titanium Comics.
That's awesome. That's a great story because, I mean, it shows how you're using your head to like think through the trends and whatnot. I think that's what a lot of people lack today. And with this show, we try to teach leaders how to think and act. And so, that's a great example for them to follow. So I understand you're working on your third major venture. It's called Raster Technologies. So as you look back on your entrepreneurial journey, what's been the most valuable lessons that you've learned from transitioning between different industries?
Okay. I would say there's a couple different lessons here. The one that comes to me first, you've got to build a team. There's just no two ways about it. You've got to build a team. Once you have the concept down, once you know where you want to go with your product or your service, you got to build a team. even if you're going to be the what's called the solo entrepreneur, you've got to work with people that know their way around and specialize in a particular area. Very important stuff.
At building a team, that's something that I talk about a lot. And I honestly think that, like we talked before we got online here about how I took myself from 100 hours a week down to about 40, 45. And a big part of it was like looking at my team and kind of reorganizing where they go, but also filling in gaps that we didn't really realize we had. And that's what made it possible to cut my hours by 60%, was building a
Good
team.
stuff.
So sorry to interrupt
Yes.
you, but I wanted to interject that. So go right ahead.
No, no, no. You're absolutely right. We've got to have a team. We've got to have specialists. Usually, if you're the entrepreneur, and you've done this for some time, you're going to generalize. You've got to have those specialists. There are just areas that and information that you're not keeping in the front of your mind that you can't access as quickly. Those team members are going to have a network of their own and expertise that they're going to bring in, and that's going to act as a force multiplier. You're going to need that. Another thing that I noticed is, as far as I'm concerned, business is fairly universal. And with respect to everyone's industry, market sector, specialization, if you generalize, but business is fairly universal. When you've worked on a business project and you've taken that project commercial and you're able to pay attention to the steps that helped you to go, as they say, from zero to one, right? Helped you to go from, ideal phase to selling your product or your service. If you major notes, you're going to find that those steps when you go into your second business, your third business, are going to be fairly much the same or similar. What's going to vary, I would say, are the conditions of the market that you're in, uh, the way you need to present that particular product or service in that new market that you're in. So there are variations, but the core process of business is going to be the same. And you want to take a copious amount of notes. I had the number of notebooks that I have just from the last 2 years, not to mention the last 10, just a tremendous amount of notes. I don't even want to go back and look at some of the notes that I have. So, I mean, yeah, it's just a lot. And you know, you want to have a record so that you can go back. You want to have a system within your note taking where you can go back using your highlighter, where you write on the page, how you fold the page. All of these things are key. And as you ask that question, Mike, I'm really talking to the new entrant, the new entrepreneur. There's so many out there, especially in tech. Everybody wants to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, the next Steve Jobs. And with that, you don't know how to get there. And so we're all standing on the shoulder of giants. We're all learning from the examples of people before us. So these are some of the things that I've had to learn. And you've got to be a risk taker. You've got to be light. Sometimes spam and top ramen are necessary. You want those steaks. You got to imagine a steak when you're eating that top ramen. And you have to be careful too, because you'll have offers and you want the value exchange to be as equal as possible on both sides. People are going to come with value propositions or what seem to be value propositions, and you want to analyze that carefully. You want to look and play that forward. How is this going to work out? And you don't want to go with your hand empty either. You want to bring value. So these are things that I picked up over the years, and I'm sure there's a million other things. You know, uh, if my team is listening to this, they know I'll talk you to death. So I'll leave it at that.
I love that comment you made, standing on the shoulder of giants.
Absolutely.
It's really true. So let's delve a little bit into Raster Technologies though. So you you have a product you call Hero Ledger. All right. What makes Hero Ledger stand out in the market for independent media creators?
Hero Ledger is a B2B blockchain enabled marketplace. And in the future, we're enabling it with artificial intelligence, but not what most people are used to today, which is the a large language model. We're talking about a different type of marketplace. We're talking about a marketplace where new market entrants into media entertainment production, whether you create comics, create your own games, create your own cosplay, I should say, create and perform your own cosplay, create animated films or even live action films, where you will be able to take what we've tracked as a tremendous amount of assets that you've created and used to produce, but have yet to add them to your own productions or anyone else's. And you're going to be able to sell or license these products to other creators who have very specific needs. They may have a short budget that they're on, a very fixed budget. They may have very little time or less time in their production process. And they may be looking for something very specific, the difference between what's more thematic to science fiction versus, say, old world, something ancient or fantasy. So Hero Ledger allows for first intellectual property protection in the form of attestation. We try to explain to creators that the only way to know that something legally belongs to you is not your claim. It's what happens in the court of law. And from that point, or I should say, to get to that place where there's a judgment on your behalf, whether it's a mediator or an actual court, you're going to need to be able to show some proof that you created this work, that it belongs to you. So Hero Ledger is here to help with that. Our blockchain is there to assist with that. Also, we're working on tracking tools. What's happening with that digital representation is online. Can we find it? What will we find in terms of its use? These are areas that are very important to us that we know when creators see this and interact with it, they're going to be more interested in protecting their works. So it's there to really help them manage their IP, manage the data, get more insights on how they're transacting, on who's interested in what they have to sell and what they have to license. To get into licensing, that's another unique aspect of Hero Ledger, is that usually you have to be commercially successful to get the eyes of a Netflix, to get the eyes of a Sony or a Lionsgate. That's the norm. We do know that there are scouts out there looking and finding projects that are more at the edge. However, it's usually someone that's been that's connected, and that has some commercial success, a lot of commercial success, I would say. And for the newer creators, the less experienced, but more so the less commercially known brands, they should not be. They should, let me say what they shouldn't be. They should have access to licensing. Licensing is a mode of monetization. Licensing is going to help with brand recognition. It's not just about making money. We're talking about passive income that they're not going to have to do a whole lot more to generate. We're talking about that product going into a market that they didn't have to spend money to build. That audience is already there because whoever is licensing that product they spent time building that market. So there's less cost, less time, more money. And we really need creators to understand something. While you're looking to secure your work or labor with a major studio, you have a tremendous amount of art that can be sold and licensed to other creators. And this also helps your brand to grow. And so Hero Ledger is really working to be a product that helps creators to really move the needle and have more resources at their disposal. I could go on and on, but I think those are some of the major areas.
I noticed a real heavy focus though on Web3 technology. So what do you think? How do you think Web3 is going to transform the landscape for independent media and creators in the coming years?
Great question again. First, I would definitely say, and this might seem like a very abstract answer, but it's the data, it's the insights, the rich besides the rich engagement and interaction that creators are going to have with their teams and with their fans, supporters, customers. The amount of information that they're going to be able to understand about those interactions, to understand about their products, about their businesses, it's going to help to make them more efficient, faster. They're going to learn faster. They're going to become better at what they do. And this process has an effect in the entire ecosystem. So, that rising tide that raises all ships, when that information is out there as a wave, we're going to see the little boats, little tugboats, rowboats. We're going to see them really transform, not just go up with the wave, but transform into larger ships. I know in the comic book industry, there's a lot of talk about saving the comic book industry and who's going to be the next Marvel or DC. In my world, those are non-arguments. Tomorrow is about cooperation at a level we haven't seen previously. We're talking about brands being able to leverage their uniqueness with other brands to create more of an ecosystem effect than the traditional idea of competition. There'll still be lots of reasons and opportunities to compete, but these brands are going to be able to interlock and to work with one another in very dynamic ways. So those are a few ways that Web3 will be dynamic, will change the industry, especially for up and coming creators. I think that the advantages here for the independent creators, the solo entrepreneurs, small teams, even medium-sized businesses, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity with these technologies becoming more ubiquitous, and they are. And not only are they becoming more ubiquitous, but I have to state that they're becoming easier to use and to integrate.
Yeah, it's been growing and growing and growing and growing over the past, say, I don't know, 5-ish years. I've noticed it taking on more of a significant spot in most businesses strategy somewhere. I mean, I do fractional CTO work, so I run into a lot of various businesses, and it's you see one of two things. It's either on their radar or it's not on their radar at all.
Yeah.
Like they don't even care. And I just find it interesting. It's an interesting approach to problem solving in the tech industry, especially. But so we've done some heavy questions about technology. Let's have a little fun, you know.
Yeah.
If you could create a crossover comic book series featuring characters from any universe or franchise to represent the journey of an entrepreneur, what characters would you choose, and what would the storyline be, do you think?
Been asked a lot of questions before, but that one takes the cake. Woo.
I like to have
So
fun, you know?
yeah, uh, wow. Okay, what characters would I cross of what? So you're saying two universes essentially, two character
Well, like, instead
universes.
of DC only or Marvel only, take
Mhm.
any of the existing comic book heroes, and maybe you might take one or two, and then turn the storyline into some kind of entrepreneurial journey.
I would definitely say, people are very much, in love with, and I think that's a great term for it. Marvel, DC, Image, and you should be in love with some of the indie creators as well. As many titles you can get your hands on. I have a few. I would say one of the things that we've done is we've created a set of characters that would help to tell this story. And without going too far into that, I think that um, there, it's a tough question, but I'll take a crack at it. I think that independent creators and their characters, there's no specific brand. I think that independent creators and their characters crossing over would make a great opportunity where it can be done legally and as smoothly as possible to tell this story. I think there's no better set of characters, in fact, to tell this story than the independent comic creators, the independent, you know, yep, the independent comic creators and graphic novel creators. There's just no better set of characters because these characters represent the best ideas. They represent the best ideas of the industry. They're really born out of their experiences from the comics. Whereas you had, Marvel and DC create from their experience as writers, their experiences with the world, and true, with other fictional materials that they loved as well. I would say independent characters tell the story of the industry even better because of, we talked to so many creators and how they came to comics. Most people would not believe that these creators are really the super fans. They're not just, the fans are the buyers of comics, but the super fans are the creators, the independent creators. And believe it or not, having spoken to many of them and asked them what got them to, going beyond reading into wanting to create comics, it was something actually that was not as pleasant in their life at that time. Anything from, we've heard, people being sick, being down in the bed where they couldn't go to school, they couldn't go to work, to, having certain problems, social issues. And that time alone, they kind of went into their own space and created this world of comic book characters and comics that really, again, take the best ideas from the industry. Everything from, the importance of being a hero, the importance of using what you have to make things better for others. So I think that's the best way I can answer that question. Very great, very good question. And I'll look at that question again and probably get back to you with a much better answer. But I would say the independent characters are the best crossover that you could have. Even if you were to look at them individually, there's so much, uh, just really so much story, so much detail, even in the ones that might not make it commercially, but the time and the energy and the thought put into them is phenomenal. And when you break that down and you look at what's transpired in the industry as far as you know, financially, what's transpired in terms of story, in all these different areas. You can see those things in the characters and storylines.
It's interesting because when I saw that, this appearance was coming up, I always
Mhm.
review the notes. And when I saw your connection to comic book industry, I kind of had a feeling that we would connect pretty well because, when I was younger, I was really into comic books, really into comic books. And then, life happens and you have children to raise, a
Sure.
wife and family to take care of, and it becomes on the back burner. And it's interesting because about think 2 weeks ago, I was mentioning to my wife that I kind of miss, reading comic books. And so I started looking online, and I can't believe like they have services now that deliver these things electronically. Um,
Yes.
I'm not sure I love that concept because I like to feel I'm strange. I like to read ebooks, but when it comes to comics, I would rather have it in my hands, and feel it, see the artwork up close. Not always digitized, but yeah, it's just interesting because if we people come into our pathways just at the right time, in life, for a reason. So who knows what the reason is? But I also find it interesting that that here we are, we're both transplants from California to Nevada.
Wow. Yeah.
We probably, my guess is we probably live about 20 minutes apart from each other max. Like,
Yep.
it's kind of crazy, how life works. But this has been a really amazing interview. I've really appreciated your insights. Why don't you let the audience know where they can connect with you?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I get a lot of cracks, a lot of jokes about being on LinkedIn, but so LinkedIn, I think it's /IN/DW3, the team, Raster at raster.io. And we have a LinkedIn page, and Raster is RASTR, no E. So that's RASTR.io. And we're over on YouTube at Raster Technologies. So that's where you can find us.
Awesome. Well, it'll be on a card. People can look at that. You don't have to worry about writing it all down. It's going to be
Great.
there. But thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here with me for this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Mike, thank you so much for having me. And I thank your listeners for listening in. I look forward to more.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. But thanks everybody for being here to listen to another episode of Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge, where we help you, sharpen your leadership skills every week, every Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Hope to see you here next week for another great episode. Hope you have a great week.